Welcome to the What's Your Weird Story podcast.
Everyone has at least one good story.
And some of us have stories that are just to the left of normal.
We're interested in the ones that push the boundaries of what we can perceive.
Stories that defy explanations.
Stories with an air of mystery.
Stories we might not share
for fear of being thought of differently.
But don't worry, we're all friends here. So, what's your weird story? Hello, Weirdsville. Thank you for listening once again to your weekly weird podcast of stories from all sorts of people and all sorts of friends. I am your fumbling introductory host for the week, Adam Beebe. With me, as always, is my best friend, old school homie, partner in crime, but not really crime because we're good law-abiding citizens for the most part, Barry Johnston.
Hey, what's going on?
He's going to leave me with that.
I'm sorry.
After I stumbled through all of that.
I'm trying to get my energy back, man. I've been traveling, and it's just it's catching up with me.
Tell us about that. You went to Seattle?
Yep. Went to Seattle. There was a big martial arts summer camp that I attended for 3 days, which was wonderful. It was great to meet people and train intensely. And I'm noticing now that I'm into my 40s, my body does not recover the way that it used to. So I'm trying to learn how to deal with that, you know? All
of the recovery that you're speaking of, that's not all just physical from the training, is it? There's other recovery.
Yeah.
From the travel.
It's travel. Yeah, that's the thing, is like I don't travel like I used to. I used to travel real well. Mm-hmm. You know, but man, like the jet lag, like, I don't know, you can't even call it jet lag because it's only 2-hour difference, but just the time on the flight, it was like there was a 3-hour flight to LA and then a layover for 2 hours and then another 2-hour and 30-minute flight to Seattle. And I just have a hard time when I've been sitting for a long time. I don't sleep on planes at all. It's just super uncomfortable. And I think I made a mistake by drinking too much caffeine, you know, so I couldn't sleep. And then you get there, and then it's like, it's not as simple as just grabbing your bag and then getting to the hotel easily. You got to wait for another hour for the shuttle to come. And then when you get to the hotel, now it's 1 o'clock in the morning. And then you got to try to go to sleep and then wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning. It's just like, you know, just a lot. And then you start training, and it's like, you know, it's a good, I'd say 5.5 hour a day training, which could be worse, but at the same time, it's very intense. And so they break it up into morning classes and then afternoon classes. But the problem is, once you stop moving, all that lactic acid starts building up, and you just, once you hit the afternoon, you're just like, oh my God, I'm so sore right now. And you know, I try to do the natural thing, you know, and only take things that are natural, so I don't contaminate my body with anything. And I try to eat as well as I can. I thought I prepared myself by trying to eat well and sort of slim down a little bit, but it's kind of like a marathon. You just got to do it, you know. Yeah. But I made it through it. I felt really good about that. And then I got to spend some time with my sister who's living out there. And, man, I just got to say,
that's awesome.
Oh, dude, the Pacific Northwest is just beautiful. It's one of my favorite parts of the country. So
yeah, I hear lots of good things about it. I also hear lots of weird things and serial killers out there.
Yeah, true. And, that is where Ted Bundy was from, out that way.
A lot of them. There's a lot of them out there. Yeah. So. But that's where he started off.
But the weather is amazing. You can't beat the weather. You know, come back home to 102-degree weather. So that's tough to get used to. I'm trying to get my body back into the swing of things down here. So it's you know, it's a little bit of an adjustment, but it's good. Everything's good. We're, you know, keeping moving with the kids, and they're busy with doing their summer stuff, and So, yeah. So how about you, man? What have you been up to?
Nothing. No, but you're out there globe trotting or at least country trotting and doing all that. And I've just been actually, I've been lining up a lot of good, cool stuff for us to interviews for us to have and getting us ready for our first year anniversary that we've been doing this, and that will be out. Yeah, that'll be about August 27, I believe, and that'll be that we'll have. That's the year to the day of our first release.
Wow. And
we'll have a release on that day. But we got some cool stuff coming up. We've got next week we've got a guy named Birdshot, and he is going to tell us some. He's quite a character, and he is going to tell us some stories about what he called it was white trash Mississippi, and also he is a sideshow performer in a traveling sideshow act. So he's got cool stories about that, and he was brought to us by our buddy Emotron. So that's going to be cool. That's going to be a lot of fun. That's going to be a little blue. So, you don't want the kids to be listening to that episode.
Definitely put the kids away for that, for sure.
But that's a good one. And then the following week, we're going to have Dr. Louis Turi. And man, he's a huge get for us. He's an interesting guy, and he's got some cool stuff. He was an abductee, and he also was given these powers of I guess prediction is what you would say, and he's got a really good track record on that. And so we're talking to him, and he might be a controversial figure for some people because of his experiences and his beliefs and where he's coming from, but just man, a delight to talk to, and just full of energy and just super positive, and that's one of the things that he's all about. So we got those coming up, and a lot more coming up as we round out our first year and start getting into our second year. And it's just been amazing that, not to, I guess kind of humble brag, kind of pat ourselves on the back, but we've been doing this for almost a year straight. This will be I think this is episode 50, and we haven't missed a beat. We haven't missed a week. We've learned a lot. I think we've certainly got a lot better, but it's been a hell of a lot of fun. Yeah. And
we've got to meet some amazing people.
Yeah, we did. And we've got to know some people that we already knew a little bit better,
Right.
But that's, we'll talk about that on our year anniversary special that'll be coming out in the next few weeks. So something to look forward to, if I can get that out of my mouth. But today we have Nilok joining us, aka Visitor 10, and he's an interesting guy. He's an interesting fellow. He's got some really cool stuff, and we had a really great, very interesting conversation that just got into a lot of different areas and a lot of levels and deepness and stuff. And we had one of the things that he was coming to talk to us about, which in the entirety of the episode is really just a small portion of it, but it's really cool. He's got some really cool things to say, and he's got a very unique perspective and how he is existing in life in this universe. And we really we had a good time talking to him. So I guess without further ado, Visitor 10, because I like calling him that. Visitor 10, what's your weird story?
Yeah. Gosh. So, full name Sangam No Lock. We have self-ordained ourselves a fluctuating facial facade, forewarning apocalyptic time-traveling thaumaturge who practices alchemy, or wizard, for short and colloquial terms. But that's a convoluted mouthful, so you can just call us Visitor 10 or Nilok, right? And I guess shit started to go down in 2006 when we realized that there was a little bit more to this reality than meets the eye and the material realm. And so we kind of took an interest in a lot of different things: metaphysics, spiritualism, lucid dreaming, mind-body connection, and therefore separation, and just kind of suspending one's belief or disbelief within this reality and how far one can possibly go. And since then, it's kind of led us on a myriad of wacky adventures and journeys. But I guess the one that we're kind of here to talk about today is a hybrid of the two main stories that kind of plague our existence at the moment. And yes, we are using "we" to denote the I, because I is something that we all share, and kind of a big responsibility to don the letter I. So we've decided to dissect ourselves up into what we feel as though represents the archetypal human, and the different things that the human reality can bring upon you. So we've been kind of paying homage to the multicellular organism that we populate by referring to our singular entity as a pluralized entity. So anyway, in 2006,
I like that.
Yeah.
Can I ask you what was the catalyst to sort of have you dive deep into this way of thinking? Was there something that sort of catapulted you into delving deeper within?
Probably, yes. So in college, art school being as flimsy and frou-frou as it can be, we were asked in a sculpture class to choose an alternate personality, or like an alter ego of some sorts. And so not really wanting to don a character that was too far away from the, specimen that we were building, that, everyone is, involuntarily assigned to, the subjective I of sorts. We decided to kind of look in the mirror and ask further what it really meant to be a human, or be a singular entity. And so that's kind of when we started taking hints or messages from the mirror world of sorts, and realizing that everyone has a mirror name, or a wizard name, a mage name, whatever you want to call it. And it's the stark opposite of your government name. So choosing Sangam No Lock as ours, we realized that since the government owns your one name, the mirror name is kind of who you choose to be. And since we're kind of all about manifesting one's reality and will around us, and started to dive deeper into chaos magic and mind-body separation, there was kind of an evening in which our 17-year-old self stumbled upon some universal truths, or functionings or realities of mysticism that were a little bit too much for, like I said, my 17-year-old ego at the time to really deal with. And so on July 14th, 2007, we committed mental suicide. And but there's a whole larger story that kind of led up to that. But that would be the definite major catalyst that brought upon the dissection of ourselves up into what we feel as though represents the archetypal human.
So can you, because I think I've got a good idea what you're saying, and but for our listeners, and can you go a little bit more into what you mean by mental suicide?
Sure. So that's a specific story within itself. We happen to be volunteering at a music festival of sorts, and we're kind of interested in mind-altering substances to a certain extent, and had also been doing this research on mind and body separation and lucid dreaming and the dream world, and kind of what it all means to merge the two and or separate and compartmentalize. And we kind of found ourselves walking down this path of self-realization where we realized that life in itself, to exist, is to be your own God and manifest the reality around you, and that you have the power to be whatever it is that you want to be. But unfortunately, our ego kind of told this to ourselves through these realizations in this very stark, complicated manner that it kept using the word I in this really profound way that was saying that I am God, I am this. And so therefore kind of creating this separation and delineation between myself and others, but not really a huge fan of like the amount of pressure that was adopted by such a philosophy. We decided to, I mean, this what we're talking about took like years to come to the conclusion of, because unfortunately, like after this day, there was this residual like 3 to 5 years that like was still like this, like
hashing it out period.
Yeah, like figuring out what exactly happened. But I guess bottom line is that we became really overwhelmed with reality, and that and having such power and this responsibility, and also like being, captured, held captive in this human body, is when we decided to. We had been suicidal a couple times before that. But never obviously succeeded in the deed, and realized, like, why are we trying to kill the machine when we should go after the pilot? And the pilot is perhaps the one at fault for such mental travesties of sorts. And so we decided to focus our attention upon the pilot, and it just kind of clicked. I don't know really what happened. There was just this moment that it was like, oh yeah, this makes so much sense, and this is how I'm going to do it and how it's going to go down. And funny enough, I guess like Hollywood must have had a funny influence and the movie The Matrix, because that is kind of how it mentally manifested itself within my brain at the moment, was this like pulling out of the plug. And so from that moment on, we became unconscious on the ground. And I guess that is when people noticed us kind of convulsing or maybe seizing on the ground. And later was told that we, so I awoke to paramedics like scooping our like bloody entrails and like inside out vessel, because I guess what we didn't know, upon exiting the vessel, we turned ourselves completely inside out, and was before we burrowed to the center of the earth, or what we now know to be called the Binktine Mines. And we learned that through teaching ourselves how to freestyle or like translate universal gibberish to a certain extent.
I got you. Yeah.
Absurdisms.
So your art, as it were, is a way of connecting with that. Is that what you're saying? Is that you started opening that channel up to be able to interpret these ideas and voices and things that you were feeling through the vessel that that we are inhabiting? Is that sort of close to?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. It definitely dove into being a facilitation of understanding what this reality is, and having the art be there to kind of facilitate and express the very dynamic points of view that any individual can have. And like, you know, like, are these thoughts mine? Where are these thoughts coming from? You know, and do I identify with these thoughts? You know, like, because, you know, I feel like any human brain on any given moment is like thinking some wild, crazy shit, like beyond what they really want to be. You know, like, and,
but most people don't entertain those thoughts for very long. I like that you're sort of, you've kind of adopted this idea that, like, even though it's a fleeting thought, maybe that needs some investigation. You know, I like that. I like that. Most people don't do that. Most people are not that introspective.
Or willing to take that risk, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly.
It's some of what you've described in your process of, I guess, separating from your mental suicide. You're separating from the ego, I think, is how I'm interpreting it, right? It reminds me, and you pointed to the Matrix. It reminds me a lot of the writings of Grant Morrison in his graphic novel series, The Invisibles, which, if anybody out there hasn't read or is interested in some really like heavy metaphysical and really thought-provoking and weird in the best way possible kind of, you know, reading, and throwing in a dash of like anarchy and spies. That's a good series I can highly recommend.
Cool.
Nice.
But it seems like that because, you know, there's a lot of this things that, like you've described, about like there's a mirror soul, a mirror kind of consciousness or idea, or, you know, with the magic. He's a big practitioner of chaos magic, and a big
nice.
Yeah, he's really into like promoting that and stuff like that. And so
can we go over what chaos magic is for those of us that aren't familiar with that?
Sure. Chaos magic is kind of whatever you want it to be, which is the beautiful thing about chaos magic. It does have a lot to do with manifesting your will or intention or desires, but it isn't just, and this is like where magic gets a bad rap. It's not just like, I want to be rich, you know, like, or like some other type of like, you know, crazy. It's all about like what's within your power. And if you do have like such a huge, strong desire, you know, as being something that's like light years away from where you are now, it's about envisioning how you're going to get there, and how to take those steps to do that.
Sure.
And then there is a lot about manifesting and conjuring, and keeping the image strong, mental imaging and projecting, and then it does incorporate also like different ceremonial aspects of like burning sigils, like even sex magic. But the beautiful thing about chaos magic is that you can incorporate any practice that you want into it. So if you come from a Christian background, or have been studying Buddhist or Hinduism philosophies, or for Christ's sake, Satanism, or, you know, any what's your practice, like chakra meditation, like you can incorporate that into what chaos magic is and your practice of chaos magic.
Gotcha.
Which is really neat. Honestly, our main form of magic right now is the exploration and expression of mask work, which is where the fluctuating facial facades part of the title comes into play, and how we've been choosing to dissect the many perspectives and voices within the human experience, and kind of personify them into these masks. And originally, there was a cap on 10, but I think the human consciousness and experience is way too complex to like keep it at such an arbitrary number, you know.
And I've seen some of your videos where you do that. where you're switching masks and is that which came first, the music idea behind it or the thought of the different masks? Is that a fair question?
That's totally a legit question, and actually kind of lends itself to the gas mask story, which is kind of what brought us here. So after exploring concepts of mind-body separation and time travel, and then committing mental suicide and discovering the Big Time Minds, we found ourselves right back where we started, in this human vessel, and wondering, well, why? Why did we return? I mean, aside from not killing the machine and having the heart still beating, and you can't just kill your brain and go into a coma. I mean, you can, but that wasn't a full committal on our behalf. I guess felt we've often lent a lot of received a lot of our power within art production in the unconscious realm, and so we kind of just get these ideas and feel the compulsion and just follow that and do that. And so masks kind of became being a banana rack fabricator and dust collector, which is what we went to school for, building dust collectors and banana racks. Everything's a banana rack. You just got to put a banana on top of it and boom, banana rack. And so we realized that making masks was kind of this unconscious process of sculpture that we wanted to pursue. And right around realizing if we believe in time travel but yet are bound to this physical body, and because everyone is also bound to a physical vessel, and we've developed this language around time and communication and geographical location, then time travel can't fully exist because there's all of these potential time machines, 8 billion of them at this point, peopling this rock as we fly around the sun. And so we realized that every day was your birthday, and then therefore every day was a personal apocalypse as well. And which is, as soon as we figured that part out and started entertaining stronger the idea of on death on a daily basis as well, and fabricating these masks, then 40,000 gas masks just fall into our lap out of nowhere in North Philadelphia, somewhere 19th and Indiana Avenue. And right around that time, because we are such a fan of art forms of the unconscious, such as automatic drawing. You can get into the flow state doing whatever, whatever your art is, but we found it most in automatic unconscious drawing, ceramics, and poetry. And once we freed the word from the page and put it into the air vocally, and began to continuously attempt to unlock our filter system and remove the filter system and just have it completely flow, is when we kind of realized that we had this passion for poetry and therefore really wanted to make the music thing happen. And that became one of our primary focuses as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's so in a lot of ways, your entire life is art, your expression in a way. If people that are listening, the only way for people to hear what we're doing is to listen, because we don't do a video feed. But you're sitting in a room, and it looks to be, there's a rope behind you. It looks like to be nooses, maybe, possibly. And I'm not gonna assume, and then there's a bunch of hashes, like you've counted days with 1, 2, 3, 4 with the marked, the fifth day's marked through. What is that? Is that another expression of something?
Yeah, the tallies became a big symbol like a couple years ago, and just kind of grieving over the fact that this human body can very much be a prison, but also celebrating birthdays on the daily, and so it kind of became this strange thing where, like, what is the panopticon? Like, am I in the jail cell looking out into the light and just mesmerized by the shadows dancing on on Pluto's cave wall, or or am I the source of light? Transmitting this beam, observing the many prisoners within the panopticon of sorts.
Yeah.
But yeah, tallies are definitely a thing. They're just, I don't know. I really like the line and the ability of the line, because the dimensions, they have like such a strange way of interacting, right? Like the third dimension is a cube, but then the second dimension being a plane. But we constantly think about life as if it were a plane anyway, even though we're three-dimensional characters. It's all about maps and getting to, work on time, and like how you transverse this like flat layout of a city, and then you get paid in like flat little pieces of paper, but it's always A to B, and you're always kind of drawing a line, being a victim of chronological experience. I don't know, the dimensions have such interesting checks and balances and power over each other. And so the line kind of became, was always a point of interest. And I guess when we discovered tallies and their useful nature within drawing, we were like, of course, this is like a super important idea.
Right.
Or
Yeah.
I love it, man. I love your enthusiasm that there's no stone left unturned. I just do. I think it's fantastic.
Oh, I love that.
I really do, man.
Yeah, and there's something to be said just about simple mark making. Like you were talking about earlier about unconscious drawing, or automatic drawing, rather. Where you aren't, for people who aren't artists or familiar with the term. That's just making marks. It's not consciously trying to make an image. It's just letting your hand, your body, do these things, make marks, make drawings or whatever, and letting whatever it is that is going to be. So, it's kind of like, if you picked up a guitar and just started, playing notes, or somewhere between notes or something like that, without thinking of melody, without thinking of a song, without thinking of structure, just going and doing, and just, so it's something like that. And that's really, I understand, like, because any kind of creative process, you get to a point to where you're like in the zone, and athletes are like this too. You're in a zone, and so that you are hyper aware of what you're doing, and you kind of close out the rest of the world, and that's in a way it's very meditative, but you're not you're not conscious of it being even that kind of meditative, most people at least. So there's something about that I tap into, that I really appreciate, because like just sometimes I feel the need to just draw or make marks, just mark make. Maybe it's a little bit of there's a word for it, graphomania, I think is what it is, where you have to draw or make marks and stuff like that. So I think a lot of artists, at least 2D artists, traditional 2D artists, have that kind of a feel. So
I don't know if like normal people that aren't artists, me speaking of that demographic, something I never really understood until the last 20 years was art. Art is whatever you want it to be. And I think a lot of people have this idea that art has to be a specific thing in order to be art. And kind of what you guys are talking about is it is wherever the imagination takes you, and it may not even be nothing. Maybe nothing is art, maybe whatever. It could be an expression. It's just how you look at it. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Exactly. Yeah, if it's all art, then underneath the umbrella of everything is certainly nothing. So yeah, so paradoxes and dichotomies are of high interest as well. That's
were you a religious kid? Did you grow up in a religious household, spiritual in any way?
It's funny because like my parents did do the whole like church thing for a little bit. And we were like forced to go to Sunday school, but then the brother and ourselves just kind of like eventually were so not feeling it and put up such a great fight that my mom was just like, you know what, fine, you don't have to go, but we're going to do Sunday morning breakfast instead, because we would normally do that in addition. And she was like, you know what, fine, like family time is still really important though, and this, and so it kind of just totally, I don't know, my mom's always been like very, very supportive like that, just very like accepting of, who I am, who we're choosing to be, and this strange, I don't know how we really got this way, because our parents and brother are kind of like starkly different of sorts, but they've just been so loving and supportive all the time.
That's great to hear, man.
That is, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And the girl, the babysitter girl, she picked up the phone, and there was a policeman on the other side, and he said, "We've tracked the phone call, and it's coming from inside the house."
Whoa.
Yeah, dude.
I love those urban legend stories.
Dude, I do too. And you remember the one where the girl, it's always the babysitter or it's the kids making out in Lover's Lane, but there's the one with the girl who comes up and she finds the kids are watching TV and she turns them around and their face has SpaghettiOs.
Oh, man. Or the hook guy. Remember the hook guy?
The hook was hanging from the rear view mirror. Yeah. So if you got a story that is similar to any of those awesome urban legends, we want to hear it. Because, those urban legends, man, they started off as somebody's true life weird story. It's got to be true somewhere.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't know. One of the biggest epiphanies, like waking up after our mental suicide, was like totally of like the hippie flower power age, of sorts. And I didn't have any of that influence. So I was like really kind of wondering like where that came from, when we woke up and had this big idea of like, all you need is love, and I'm just like, where the hell does that come from? Like, I used to make fun of that statement before, this, but then woke up strongly believing that and like what? Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know. Sure.
It's one of those things that it's a silly saying, but in all actuality and all reality and unreality, it is all that we need. Yeah. And if we could, because if we could accept that and, you boil down all the religions and boil them all the way down to the bare bones. That's all what it's trying to say is, we need to love, we need to love each other. We need to be good to each other, but yet we can't, we're all, we have a collective ego that makes it impossible for us
that's also kind of the beauty of it too, because when you look at what John Lennon had, what he said and what he was, were kind of two completely different people.
Sure.
But the fact that he still said that, or that people still had that idea and still have that idea, is the most important thing. That even though we have chaotic lives and we're not perfect, all we need is love, is sort of like, yeah, man, that gets you through a lot. I mean, that, hopefully we're all at a point, we can all get to the point in our life where we can really manifest that, and maybe working toward that is the most important thing.
And I think that's a part of the art. That's what we're all trying to do. If we were to look at life as art, as an art project, if you were to look at your vessel as that's your most important sculpture, like it's what you're going to be sculpting until the day you die, and if that is then the mindset, then like there are so many things to like, just walk the road of mastery. You shouldn't ever expect to like get there and like be a master of, like life, because, that's like crazy. That's impossible, but certainly like the act of doing and, walking that path, towards, perpetual self-betterment is, like
I agree.
A beautiful thing in my
definitely.
mind. Yeah,
definitely.
That's a great way to say what your life should strive to be, man.
Yeah. Always learn, always grow.
Yeah.
Cool.
We had this. Go for it.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Oh, we had this other random project. We've been like saving our right leg completely tattoo-less. So we've been wanting to collect people and their signatures to proclaim that they are the artists of our canvas, and we created this little contract where it says like, I blank by signing this document have realized that I have authored the perception of the presenter of this document, and then it like lists off some attributes of sorts, but just in line with the idea of life being art and you being a canvas or a sculpture of sorts.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a lot. That was really awesome. I mean, that's really, heavy and thought provoking and really fantastic and just an incredible perspective. And self perspective that you've gone through, and it's really, it's profound. And so I guess back to where we started, you've given this incredible explanation to what seemed to be a simple question, but no questions are really that simple.
So true.
Okay, so as you alluded to earlier, the gas mask, this story, this situation, this is what was the line that drew us together through our friend Aaron, who had also been a guest on the show, and so I'm trying to draw lines and make connections here as well. So give us the story, because I'm very intrigued, and it's something that I've not heard anything like this. What brief little bit that I've heard. So right. So after acknowledging that time travel existed and committing mental suicide, then be embarking on this journey of dissecting ourselves up into what we feel as though represents the archetypal human in an unconscious manner, mind you, because we didn't actually know that that's what we were doing at the time. We just started making masks. And then we started paying homage to the daily apocalypse, or the happy daily birthday mentality, and being being within the service of serendipity. 40,000 gas masks decide to like show up pretty much in our backyard as super amazing and good friend. Dr. DJ TARA Cody Griswold comes to us randomly. He just had all these titles back then in college. But he comes to us randomly and is like, yo, do you want to go get a gas mask? And I'm just like, oh, man, like, how many, like, this kid like constantly drags us on wacky adventures like all the time, like whether you want it to or not. And just like, and he's been like this counterpart that has been like such a wonderful, like healthy push to, because
because like despite the fact that I like want to master and conjure all these like skills and talents and different things, I have a horrible time showcasing them, and so I owe Cody a lot. Just to like pushing us up on stage, like literally, physically, like actual stages, and then in metaphorically as well. But so anyway, this kid comes up to us and is all like, "Want to go get a gas mask?" And I'm like, "Yo, it's like final season. I'm malnourished, underslept. Like I'm having a hard time like telling what's what in reality right now. And you want me to what? Fine, whatever." And so we jump in this car and we go to this location. And he said that he found this article on Craigslist that just says it was some like random title. It didn't say like free gas masks. It didn't say like I am getting rid of my gas masks or anything like that. It just said like come to this warehouse and this address, and there's like gas masks here. And so we roll up and we didn't see anything except for like a neighboring warehouse that had some like action going on in it, some like late night like construction trucks out doing whatever, and a slew of white boxes in this parking lot of this abandoned warehouse. And we just, we didn't want to be too nosy. We kind of figured we were trespassing anyway, but like we didn't really know what was going on, and so we were just kind of like going to give up early. And we did like a once around, didn't really see anything, but then like as soon as we were about to leave, we were like, "Yo, what's that on the ground over there?" And like sure enough, it was like a smashed up mask, but that on the ground brought us closer to these white boxes. Mm-hmm. And so these white boxes ended up actually being cases of gas masks, cases upon cases upon cases upon cases upon pallets upon pallets upon pallets of gas masks. Wow. And we counted them up, approximately 16 masks per child's case, 16 masks per civilian, and then 18 masks per military model. And we took the low number and did a quick estimate of how many cases per pallet and how many pallets there were. And there was approximately 40,000 gas masks in this random parking lot in North Philadelphia.
Good Lord.
And so we packed our car through and through, thick with gas masks, and kind of just like ran off giddy like little kids back to school. And the very next day, I find ourselves in Havertown, and Cody is back in Philly, back at this site, sending me pictures, being like, "Oh shit, yo, they're bulldozing all of these gas masks. They're just getting rid of all of them." And in the middle of the day, and I was like, "Yo, I know we're not there right now, but like, you need to stuff your car full again of cases, and I'm going to roll up with Mama's minivan, and we're going to pack that sucker out, and we're just going to take as many of these gas masks as possible," which ended up being like approximately 700 of them.
Wow.
We've been kind of toting around since April 30th, 2010, I believe.
Wow.
Yeah. Weird days. And there's actually like, there's a whole slew of them over here. You can see all of these masks.
Oh my God.
Wow.
All right. So everybody listening at home, he just got up and he's walking around with his camera phone. Says we do our recordings over Skype, and we don't show you the video, but we like the video so we can see each other's faces and stuff. But there are just a mountain of boxes of these various kinds of legit gas masks. Like, wow.
And a skull.
And a goat skull. Yeah. Look at all those.
Good Lord. So do you have something epic in mind for those, or are you waiting for the right opportunity?
Well, seeing as how we just proclaimed ourselves to be a apocalyptic time traveling wizard. We were like, well, of course, we're just going to like hit the streets with these and play the game of capitalism and start a conversation about what these gas masks mean to people, whether it means warfare or apocalypse or safety or protection, whatever it means, and kind of ask them to exchange what we thought was a fair price was like $20, which would be like the price of like upscale, somewhat, you know, like anywhere you eat in the city of Philly, really, like $20 and a drink or something like that, you know, and
right.
And so we figured that was decent exchange. So we've just been kind of they've come up in a myriad of different ways. They've just been kind of incorporating themselves into the art in different facets, and then also like we ended up because we kept like hitting the streets with these and like pushing around a wizard trunk in like random parts of Philly, getting on the subway with like a wizard trunk and gas masks and like
that'll get you some looks in Philly, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. It was a really fun time. And the times aren't over yet. We definitely plan on like kind of continuing to do that. And so we've been kind of like hoarding them to a certain extent, but we're also running out of like functional sizes that people really want to buy or wear. So I think in the end, when it comes down to it, and you know, we don't have many left, we definitely want to just kind of continue to use them as props and like different, like you saw that we were kind of like using it as like texture underneath that like dollhouse and different ceremonies. I really want to make out of the child's mask because that's the most unpopular model to buy because people don't want to protect their kids. Damn it.
Well, yeah, they don't want to pretend like their kids are in any danger whatsoever.
I think, and I don't have kids, but this is just me saying, I think that what it probably is that people want the novelty of having their own gas mask that will fit them. Right. Whereas, you know, it's a little bit, maybe it's scary or weird or whatever to buy one for your kids. Now, I would have loved to have a gas mask as a kid, man. I would have loved that. That would have been fun. Right. I would have worn it all the time as like, you know, a superhero mask. But, you know, I was a weird little kid. So,
I mean, that's the exact reason why Cody was able to pry us away from finals season in the middle of, you know, in the middle of school. I was like, you're got to be crazy, man. You want me to go on this wild? I'm so glad we did, though, you know?
That's great.
Yeah. Oh, it's so funny. We want to make a dress, like a big, beautiful, like gown out of the children's gas masks. I just think with all the hoses and stuff, they would be really, really interesting.
Yeah, that would be
really cool.
But that probably won't come for a while. We'll probably just continue to play with them. We have a lot of video to do. That's kind of what we're gearing up here for. We finally found space and time to really kind of try to make this video, music, art thing happen. We've been like the last 4 years have just been like relentless dedication to, you know, making money and trying to get ourselves in a particular spot in which we can kind of let go of the job world for a bit and like concentrate on the art. Unfortunately, we just sustained a herniated disc. Oh, so a big part of this year has just been setting the art and music aside and really focusing on healing and not trying to get surgery, which has just been, it's been really interesting. It's been kind of assisting in like the evolution of like our mental and emotional well-being. It's been a big blessing in disguise. I spend a lot of time on the floor laying down, meditating, just kind of like meditating the pain away. And then there's a lot of emotional perks to that, like kind of really sort through like what bothers you, what doesn't. And, and then going back to the life is art thing, as, a random arbitrary visitor 10, that's been one of our main enchantments actually in chaos magic. Was a while ago we got the term habeas corpus tattooed on our sternum, but backwards, because everything's backwards in the mirror world, but it's kind of, you may have the body, kind of denoting this relinquishment of the vessel to universal will is kind of the thought behind that. So at the moment we're kind of mildly, of course, the subjective mind is still here. I still exist. This personality still exists. I'm still stuck in this vessel and I have all my past memories, but we've kind of, so with the intentions and will of, the subjective now and this subjective being, we've also attempted to relinquish our will and manifestation of life completely to the universe and its desire for us, I guess. Like what, I don't know, we kind of asked it to try to, help sculpt us into the best visitor we could possibly be, and so I feel like that is kind of in line with that, this herniated disc, just really keeping me physically down, but this journey of not letting it keep me down.
Yeah.
And injury makes you navigate things a little bit differently. I think when you're young and you're invincible, the world is maybe to you clear, but as you start navigating age a little bit and having to deal with those little things, it really does. It's profound because it does play a psychological mind game with you, and I think it's where a lot of people get trapped. We had a Emotron, he was on, and we talked about psychedelics and ayahuasca, DMT stuff, and I see a similarity there where you're looking for relief, mentally in a lot of ways. People are, but that's the same thing physically. If you have physical pain, you're looking for an escape there also. And how do you deal with that? Because the physical pain is maybe in some ways more delicate because you're actually feeling the nerve endings that aren't working well, or the things that are broken in your body, and how to remain positive and stay on the path of enlightenment and furthering the self, and how do you navigate that? It's an interesting thing that we're presented with in this world. We're not just a spiritual being. We also have a meat vehicle that we got to take care of, and it's a conundrum,
So true. Yeah.
Well, another thing though about, and as like you were saying, is that when you do have an injury like that especially one that makes it where you are, you can't move very much, or you're limited in your body movement, that slows you down. And that's something that often, especially in our accelerated culture, in our society, and in our contemporary world, being able to slow down is something that we need a lot of the time, because we are going too fast to try to do too many things, because, we got all these things that we have to do. We have to go, like you were saying, we have to go to this place and work. We have to go do this. We have to go do that. We have to do all these things. We have to wear all these masks. We have to do all that. And when you are injured and when you are hobbled, when you can't make those physical movements to get those places and all that, when you do have to focus on the here and now of healing and the here and now of being, that you have to change this, and help, make your body better and change it like that, then you do have to slow down. And that's also good for, to give for your mental and spiritual look at life, to give you the presence to look at the bigger picture. Because when you're moving fast, you see what's directly in front of you. You see you're focused on one point, you're focused on one thing. But when you slow down, all of a sudden, life's in panorama. And you can see there's all this other stuff,
right?
And you can see all these things going on around you that you may have missed. And people talk about this all the time. You get so caught up in life. Next thing you know, it's 5 years later than when you realized, and everything is past, and all these things that you missed, you don't even realize you missed them. So it definitely can be an incredible blessing.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, I hope that you are on the mend, and that your body is, getting back to a healthy place, and through, and it's helping you, and you're able to harness the downtime, as it were.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for your well wishes. It's been a hell of a journey. Yeah. And there's been some shitty setbacks along the way that have just really lengthened the experience. But we also kind of owe those setbacks to, where we are now. Cause before we could fake it and kind of lay down and draw or wood burn or be on the phone communications and stuff, whatever. But the second time around, when we re-injured the already healing injury, it was nothing. It was lay on the floor and you couldn't do anything. And so it was, it's been a journey, and it's been really, really interesting just being so much more in touch with, because a herniated disc isn't just a spinal injury. It's more like a nerve injury, because your disc is blown out and pinching your sciatic nerve.
Yes.
And despite the fact that that's all leg, your sciatic goes down, either you have two of them, both of your legs, we've developed this so much more of an intense, intimate relationship with our nervous system that is just I didn't know that this was possible. And then it bled into how I cope with my depression, and, how I deal with anxiety, because if I'm anxious, my injury hurts more. So I have even more incentive to get a hold of that anxiety, and really just conscious breathing and
because that can create a really bad cycle.
Really bad.
Especially being injured also, can be, create the depression, and, feed the depression and feed which will feed the anxiety, and it'll feed the pain, and it'll just, a negative thing so you got to kind of you got to work to keep that out and break that cycle and push those things away. So, and that's, where you come in with your meditation and your kind of, your approach to, kind of in a sense, sometimes you have to rewire your own brain, and I think that's another thing that you were speaking about earlier on, when you were saying that, you committed mental suicide. It's you have to, sometimes you just have to rewire your own brain. Yeah. And a few years ago, I was going through a really, really rough time in life. And I had just, out of being brokenhearted and out of a relationship, and just completely crumbled to the ground. And, it was just terrible. I mean, it was just the worst I'd ever been. And I mean, I have a natural tendency towards depression anyway. I've been dealing with that since I was in my teens, but it just was so bad to the point to where I just kind of one day said to myself, I don't want to feel this way anymore. Mm-hmm. And so from that point on, I went about rewiring my brain so that I can not think like that. So I could break that secular pattern that always, that had been with me, and I was able to overcome, and I was able to kind of rebuild myself and put myself in a better place. Yeah. And, I still deal with depression, but I'm better capable now because I can look at it from a different point of view, and I could recognize it. Oh, hey, I'm feeling this way because, or I know that this is only, a temporary chemical imbalance in my brain, and so I don't have to beat myself up like I do like I would or do.
Mm-hmm.
I can stop doing that, and I can push. I can do things to be better than that, to be different from that, to not feel that way, and and that always that still helps me out, because like I said, you rewire your brain, you put yourself on a different place, a different level or whatever, and that's, to me, that's what you were talking about, and I'm like, yeah, I get that. So
I think people, there is truth to that too, because the brain does make the connections, and when you tell yourself something over and over and over again that this equals this, after a while, you just start spouting that as the gospel, and it's like, I do like the Eastern philosophy idea of die 1,000 deaths, because like, in life, you have to constantly reinvent yourself or be challenged and be willing to let maybe some of those thoughts and stuff that you used to hold, at the core, you got to let them go, because maybe they're holding you back, or, maybe they're not allowing you to see things for the way that they are. And I think that's important, man. And I think that talking about psychological suicide or whatever, I mean, that is really a profound statement, in that most people wouldn't say that, because it's that conjures up a lot of, very sensitive feelings, but it is true in that if you're really going to soul search and you're really going to try to make something of yourself in this life, you've got to push yourself toward truth. And sometimes that means accepting that what you were isn't the truth now.
Yeah. Yeah. Constant rewiring. Absolutely.
Yep.
I believe in that.
I feel like
learning and growing, man.
And it kind of sucks, like how much, if you want to be like just a good human being, how much you kind of have to unlearn.
Right.
Yeah,
there's just so much crazy toxic conditioning that we've all been conditioned, whether we can acknowledge it or not, and like, oh my God.
And that's what we're, I blame a lot of technology for that, but kind of what we're trying to do with the podcast is bring back some of the love, bring back some of the simpler times, and use the technology for something better than spouting off about everything you hate.
Yeah.
We're
trying. Exactly. We're trying to build communities. We're trying to build friendships. And honestly, every person that we've spoken to, if we knew them before or not, it feels like we're talking to friends. And that's been a very valuable and important thing about doing this, is everybody we talk to, if you were our friend before, we know you a little bit more intimately, and if we don't know you, we've never met you before, we've had this communication and this sharing that we don't have in general as much anymore, because we are connected to our instant devices that we can, yes, that's for communication, but we're not speaking to each other.
Right.
You send somebody a text and you're like, well, I talked to them or whatever, but you're not, you're communicating in a fashion, but you're not having the degree of connection. Right. And that's another reason why, this is an audio podcast, but we do it with Skype so that we can see each other and we can see each other's faces and we can make that connection. Right. We can, and that's something that like is really important to us, because we want to have genuine reactions to the stories. We want to have the same kind of, we want to be a proxy for our listeners, because we don't really know a whole lot about what we're going to be told beforehand, because we want to have that same experience that everybody else has. Like if we were just sitting around and we at a diner or a coffee shop or whatever. And we were sitting at a table and we were just having a great conversation, because that's the whole,
Right.
drive and thrust. It's just that, we like to give people the platform to tell the crazy, weird stories that they don't normally tell, because people do look at you differently when you start talking about these things that you experienced and that you've gone through. And, because there's going to be a lot of people that, that have listened to any episode and go, well, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
But, it's like, hey, it's like, that's fine. That's fine for them. They can do that, but it's not the important thing. We're not trying to convert anybody to any kind of, thinking or whatever, but we just want to present the varied and, the variety of life.
They are varied.
And stories and just the spectrum of just amazing things that human beings can and have experienced here and on this planet in this life.
Right.
So we appreciate you sharing what you've experienced and your unique point of view.
Unique. Yeah.
Really
very,
fantastic.
Very unique.
Hey everybody, you're listening to the What's Your Weird Story podcast. You probably knew that already because you're listening or downloaded to the episode off of your iTunes or your Spotify or whatever place you get your podcast from. We want to thank you for listening. We also want to remind you to like us, follow us, subscribe to us, make sure that you get your new podcast episode every week. We'd also like to ask you to rate and review so that we can grow our audience and we can have more friends, we can have more stories. So thanks for listening to What's Your Weird Story.
As we were talking there, I was reminded of something that, because you're such a unique individual, and your outlook on things is not like it's not like anyone else we've had on, right? But there's a saying in my martial arts practice, and before we start practice, every time we say "onegaishimasu," which is a Japanese saying for "let me learn from you," and we say it to each other, and even the instructor says it to the student. And what that does is it sort of evens the playing field, and we can now have a conversation, and no one is above each other, and you're practicing your martial art, I'm practicing my martial art, and we meet on the mat, and we try to get better. We try to better ourselves. And I think that that really pertains to what we're doing here, especially in this conversation that we've had today. I really feel like that.
I like that a lot, yeah. Gosh, yeah, Japanese culture has been continuously popping up in different ways. And the same homie, Cody, he also ended up moving to Minnesota to work for Sweets Kendamas. Shout out Sweets Kendamas. But this is a kendama right here, and it's a Japanese skill toy.
Okay.
That's this is where I wanted to go to next, so I'm glad we kind of went there. So
nice.
Explain a little bit about the kendama, because I mean, you're wearing one around your neck, and to describe it to listeners so that they'll know kind of what it is. It's like a handle. It's a wooden handle with like the prong out of the end, and there's a kind of like a drum shaped area where it's got cups on both sides. Yeah. And there's a wooden ball on a string, and the ball has a hole that you can catch on the prong that comes out of the one end, the top. We'll have a picture of this on the social media. Yeah.
Exactly.
And then you can also catch it on the cups there. So is this, I'm guessing that this is some kind of, for you, this is some kind of a magical implement. This is some kind of like meditation device. This is something that you've taken and really run with, because like we've seen, he does
some great shit with it.
That's some really cool stuff.
It is. It's impressive.
Thanks. definitely still grinding, always trying to up the kendama skills. And there's some really wild players out there, but I don't know. Kendama would be what I would call like ball and cup from like a fractal dimension. It's like they took like the singular cup and ball, and they enlarged the ball, and now you have 3 different cups because there's a cup on the bottom of the handle as well. Okay. And then but it's a big cup, a small cup, a base cup, and a spike. Yeah. And they and everything lands on a spike, or like in order to like land a trick or lace a trick, we say you have to land it on the spike. So like whatever you start out doing, and then you can stall it in like any fashion possible on like the different perches underneath of it, and then you can hold it by the tama and do different balance tricks.
And the tama being the ball. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Tama is Japanese for sphere. Okay. And then ken is Japanese for sword. So really it's the game of sword and sphere.
Yes.
And so when they're together, it spells kendama with a D, but separately it's tama with a T and ken for the sword. And it's become like... It's become a way of life, really. It's I had no idea that a silly little wooden toy would have like really captivated and grabbed me like this. But it's embarking upon our what's about to be our 30-second revolution around the sun. It was a really great reminder that you can do anything that you put your mind to if you just practice and put in the time and fail. You need to fail. Failure is a huge part of mastery. What's the expression? Like the master has failed more times than like you can ever imagine. And you're afraid to like fail once. And that's like the biggest. That's the biggest mental hurdle, like of starting any new task, is like looking dumb, feeling silly, like, oh, I'm so embarrassed, like to sing in front of people, I'm going to sound bad. It's like, yes, you will, but that's okay. And that's why you do it again and you do it again.
Right.
And kendama has like really brought that patience, agility, hand-eye coordination, precision. It is a life lesson within a hilarious analog pastime. It's great.
That's awesome.
I love kendama so much.
How long have you been doing that for?
Gosh, I guess it'll be 4 years next year.
Okay.
I think it's 3. Yeah.
Okay.
Currently, and just beginning to get into like the world of flowing with it, because there is a third component. It is the string, which is the most important element, but people don't give it a lot of what it deserves. But it is the binding element, and then you can also, kendama is really neat because it bridges the gap between flow toys, skill toys, juggling, and yo-yo. It's. I mean, yo-yo is a skill toy, but yeah, you can get flowy with it. You can get technical with it. You can get stringy with it. You can juggle it. It's amazing. I love kendama.
That's great. That's
too
great.
much, maybe.
No, that's fantastic. I mean,
yeah, it's really cool, man.
It is. Again, to bring it, because this is what I relate it to is martial arts, and we do a lot of weapons training, and the reason why you do that is because you learn so much more through something in your hand. You learn more about balance. You learn more about how to stand correctly, about body placement, and I just think it's important to have something like that. That you're constantly pushing the mind to think of a new way to do something and have something, as challenging as it is meditative. At that point where you get to where you can get to the meditative state and you're no longer thinking about, I got to land this fucking ball on the thing, man. When you get past the technical shit to the flow state that's where the beauty is,
Yeah.
That's when it becomes an art,
Definitely.
That's cool.
Yeah. And working your ass off for something and then finally getting it,
Right.
and maybe you come close a bunch of times, and then that there's that one day where you're just like, yes,
Mm-hmm.
and you look back on like all the times that you like failed, and you're just like, finally did it. Like hard work.
That's great.
Is like the true satisfaction within that. Yeah. Gosh. Oh, and then, the weirdest part of the gas mask story,
Mm-hmm.
To backtrack a little bit, if you don't mind.
No.
Was so after rummaging around the second night there and packing up Mama's minivan, we discovered packaging slips that told you how many pieces per pallet, how many pallets per truck, and where it was all going. And through this, we learned that approximately all 40,000 of these gas masks were delivered to Huntingdon, Pennsylvania on September 10th, 2001, the day before September 11th.
Oh, wow.
These all showed up. Yeah. At a place that was actually right near, I forget how far away, but it was very close to the crash site of the plane that was hijacked from the hijackers.
Oh, wow.
Having a strange, abstract, paranoid brain to begin with, we wandered down this path of like conspiracy for a little bit, but then kind of ultimately decided that to kind of not really like make that the biggest highlight of like what the gas masks were bringing to our reality, because who knows at this point, they don't even know. Right. If 7-Eleven was an inside job.
Right.
I mean, it's
certainly a travesty.
Yeah. It's certainly odd that that's the date that was on, that it was there, that those things. So that's really, it's an odd coincidence for sure. But I mean, there were so many weird things that were happening in the world, in the subconscious at that time. Because like on the very same day, there was an album.
It was a rap album.
Yeah, it was a rap album, and I'm totally blanking on the guy's name. And there's two people, but they released it, and on that cover there was a plane. Or I believe it was a plane that was hitting the World Trade Center. Yeah. I mean, there's some kind of explosion on the World Trade Center on the same day. Yeah. And there was like, so there was these things that like, people had kind of like entertained the idea of this as something to happen, and then it did. And it was just, there's all these other weird little coincidences around the same time. So, yeah. I don't know. I don't like to chase conspiracies because they can lead to really bad, dark places, and with no shred of, absolute, any kind of thing. But it's just really unusual. Yeah. So it's really wild. But I think that your approach to make something positive out of these things that that you found, and to use them and incorporate them into your art and try to be a good thing in life. I think that's really cool and laudable. So
yeah,
awesome
for sure.
Cool.
Oh yeah. Thanks so much for entertaining the stories here. And
Well, hey, thank you for coming on. Thanks for taking the time.
Definitely.
To come on, man.
Yeah, it's been a really entertaining, really enjoyable conversation, really heavy and really, mind expanding and all sorts of things. So it's really cool. And we really appreciate it that you took time to come here and tell us all these things. And is there anything that, you want to plug or promote while you're here?
The main thing that we're kind of plugging right now is just the Instagram visitor 10, visitor 10. And we have some musical projects on the way, but gosh, with this injury, it's just been so it's been hard to like really kind of keep them moving at the state that we really want to, but there is new music, coming out, but, mostly if people connect on the Instagram, through this, then, that's, where we kind of exist on the internet, mostly right now. So
cool. Yeah. I'd encourage people to go check out your YouTube videos. There's some pretty cool shit going on. So.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Yeah, definitely want to try to release more. Yeah, but I don't know. We have this like bad habit of just like shunning anything that we've already done. I'm just like, no, it's horrible. Don't look at it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I go through that. Every record I make, I say the same fucking thing. As soon as it's done, it's fucking trash.
I
think a lot of. Well, I think most artists are never fully happy with anything. Yeah. In their eyes, nothing is ever done or completely right. Yeah. And that's something that I had to learn to look at, where it's, I had to get to a point with my art. I have to say, okay, it's good enough. It's otherwise I will work on it and I'll work on it and I'll end up overworking it and taking away some of the magic of it. And that's sometimes you like with me, some of my paintings are very, very, very loose and abstract and very gestural and like not very refined, but that's where the magic lies. That's where it captures the expression the most. And so sometimes you just got to say good enough. So.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, totally. I feel that. Yeah. For right now, where I am, this is okay. Right. Be okay with this.
Right.
This is good enough.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having us.
It's been fantastic, man. If you have any other, weird experiences, anything happening, man, give us a holler and we'll get you back on. No problem. So.
Hell yeah.
Awesome. Open door policy, man.
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool.
Well, thanks again. Yeah, it was really nice getting to chat with y'all. I really appreciate it.
You too, man.
Yeah. Take care.
All right, man.
And take care of your back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that. Definitely will. Y'all do the same.
All right, bro. All right. Take care.
Barry, what do you think that people find the most far-fetched? Ghost stories or aliens as being the more unbelievable?
I would say aliens.
I would agree with that probably too, because I think with ghosts, there's a part of the belief system that is abound throughout the world, and we want to have some kind of assurance of some form of life after death. Mm-hmm. Whereas with aliens, it's unknown for sure. It's completely unknown. We have only our imagination. We don't have a lot of universal stories that we agree upon that these things exist, maybe.
To believe in aliens is to believe that we are not the sole existence of this world, which goes against a lot of belief systems.
It definitely does. But the great thing about what we're doing here is we are open to all your stories about ghosts or aliens or anything in between or anything outside of. We're not here to judge. We're here to just talk and to share. And we don't want you to think you're crazy because you're not.
Well, Nilok, thank you for coming on the show. I mean, some great stories. Appreciate his time and just a really interesting person.
Yeah. Yeah. Just a lot of that conversation was it just kind of happened. It was a very organic conversation that just happened between the three of us, and and visitor 10 was a little bit timid and shy at first, but as we talked, he really opened up to us and really shared with us, and we really appreciate that led us to have just that really fantastic conversation, from everything from the gas mask, but also for the mask that he talks about and refers to, and about, I guess, his consciousness is where he's at in life and how he is making his way through this, and about chaos magic. And I don't know, man, it was just really, it was unexpected, but man, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, he lives his life sort of as an artist, sort of living every aspect of his life in that way. And it's really fascinating to be able to talk to someone that has that as a vision and doesn't deviate from it, And I think that's a lesson, I think, for anyone, is whatever it is that you are pursuing in your life, pursue it and do it to the best that you can, and try to do it in a way that is satisfying to you. And then any of the accolades or any of that kind of stuff that some people may be, more prone to, that's secondary really than the experience. And I like the fact that he's involved in so many different angles of art and living his life that way. It was really quite interesting.
For sure, man. Thank you, Visitor 10, for visiting with us, man. We really appreciate that.
Yes.
So yes, I guess that's about all we've got for this week. Just stay tuned for more coming up. We've got with Birdshot and then Dr. Tori, and then our big year anniversary show, which is going to be a lot of fun. And don't forget, we've got our live event coming up in October.
That's right.
Got my tickets, and fantastic. Everything is ready for traveling and coming down there, and to tell some funny stories. And everybody out there listening in the area, if you're planning on coming to the show, the What's Your Beer Story experience there at the Enid Brewing Company, let us know so we can kind of get an idea, and if we would love to hear some stories. We would love to get you to go ahead and let us know if you want to share your stories, because that's just what's going to be fun. It's just going to be a lot of fun. Yep. And so we hope we see a lot of familiar faces and also some new faces as well.
Yes. So. Fun, libations, some good food. We're going to enjoy ourselves. Yep. We're going to tell some funny stories and just have a good time.
Yeah. That'll be great. So thanks for listening. The spiel. We want to hear your stories. You guys are what has helped us do this for almost a whole year, and a little bit more almost now. It will be soon. We can't say how much we appreciate you guys listening and spreading the word and telling people about the show, and for sharing. And we want to hear your stories. So get a hold of us, write them down, get a hold of us to talk to us here on the podcast. Be a part.
Yes.
Barry's tired. So we're gonna let it go and have his wife go tuck him in so he can get to bed early tonight. So, all right, everybody. Thanks again. Be safe.
Be weird.
As always, if you have a weird story, we want to hear it.
If you have a lot of them, we want to hear them all.
We can't do this podcast without your invaluable contributions.
Whether it's sharing your stories,
listening,
rating,
and spreading the word about the podcast. Thanks for listening. Until next time, be safe.
Be weird.
The stories presented on the What's Your Weird Story podcast are, to our knowledge, true experiences that are